Okay, so we're going to look at question 3 of the 2019 higher level junior cert paper. Alright, so the question is based on seasoning. You can see it here now on the screen. So we're just going to look at how you would structure your answers, how you would gain as much as possible out of it, and how you keep it as neat and tidy as possible on your page as well. Alright, so we'll run through this question here. I have the answer on another page there now, and you'll see in a second. Alright, so the diagram shows one method of seasoning timber. Alright, so hopefully looking at that you already know exactly what that is. Okay, so part 1, state 3 advantages that seasoned timber has over unseasoned timber. Alright, so that's the first part of it. 3 reasons why you would season could be a way of looking at that. Okay, so here we look at the question, or the answer. It's a total of 40 marks for the question. So part 1, right, so actually write in what you're going to be answering, alright. So 3 advantages that seasoned timber are, alright. Bullet point, or answer number 1, lower moisture content. 2, light, stronger and easier to use. And 3, more resistant to fungal attack. Alright, so disease and defects is a chapter we haven't really looked too much into, alright, but we will get to it over the coming weeks. So you just have to take my word for it on that answer, okay? So lower moisture content obviously reduces the possibility of dry rot or wet rot occurring in your piece of timber. Light, stronger and easy to use. It's a lot easier for the saw and everything if it's nice and light, and then more resistant to fungal attack. You don't want to make something and then it being attacked by a fungus. Alright, so that's the first part. You'll see there 9 marks, so there's 3 marks for each of those. So 3 marks for number 1, 3 marks for number 2 and 3 marks for number 3. Alright, so that's the first part, fairly straightforward there. Part 2 then. What is the correct name for the seasoning method shown? Explain with the aid of notes and neat freehand sketches what happens during the seasoning process. Make particular reference to the parts labelled in the diagram. Alright, so there's a couple of parts labelled in the diagram there. You have stickers, beams, roof and board. Alright, so in bold there says neat freehand sketch. Right, so you're going to have to do some form of a sketch for this. So we go back here. Right, so we have, based on the question, it's asking us to make reference to the parts labelled in the diagram. Alright, so that's why the drawing I've done is just based around that. Okay, it's a fairly straightforward drawing, I think. Alright, so just a bit of explanation on it then. Alright, so the question asks, what's the correct name for the seasoning method shown? The correct name is air seasoning, or natural seasoning you'll get away with as well. Alright, so you get 4 marks just for that. And then a bit of an explanation on it. Boards are placed on blocks to allow the air to circulate, and it raises the stack. Right, so you could go into more explanation there. It raises the stack off the ground to prevent moisture from being absorbed up through the blocks and into the wood. The roof protects the board from direct sunlight and rain. Stickers allow the air to circulate. Right, they're all bullet points there that you would know. Alright, and then you can see that you have 8 marks going for your explanation there, and 4 marks going for your sketch or your drawing. Alright, so you can see how beneficial it is even to do a simple as drawing. Alright, so the thing with that part was making particular reference to the parts that were labelled in the drawing of the question. Alright, so the parts that were labelled in the drawing here. Okay, so then part 3, name one other method of seasoning timber. Compare the 2 methods of seasoning under each of the following headings: moisture content, duration, defects and cost. So you'll see here the first part of that question was name one other method of seasoning timber. You'll see it stated there, kiln seasoning, 3 marks for that. And then your headings that you were given. Right, so you're given moisture content, duration, defects, cost. It's so much easier if you design or draw up a table. right? So you'll see you put the headings down the side, moisture content, duration, defects, cost. Then you're comparing air season and killing season, and it's so much handier to compare the two of them in a table. You're writing down exact points, I suppose. All right, you're not going to be just filling the page for the sake of it, and you can compare the two of them quite handy. All right, the one that stands out there, cost at the bottom. Right, so air season is cheap, killing season expensive. Right, you're comparing the two, and you're getting 1 mark for each of those. Defects, end splits common in air seasoning, killing season is more controlled. Right, so it's not to say there will be no defects, but it's just a more controlled environment. Duration then, air season is slower, killing season is faster. That's a fairly straightforward one as well. And then moisture content, so the minimum moisture content you might be able to achieve from air season is about 18, between 18 and 20 I'd say, and then killing season achieves moisture content below 10. Right, so big difference there. Okay, so the easiest way to do the likes of that is to compare it in a table. Right, so 3 marks for name and killing season, and then you have 8 marks, so 1 mark for each point in that table. So 1 mark for your moisture content explanation of air season, 1 mark for your moisture content explanation of killing season. Alright, so that's the way that one works. Okay, so then we move on to part 4. The ends of the planks tend to split during the seasoning process. Describe with the aid of notes and neat freehand sketches one method of preventing this. Alright, and we've gone through a couple of methods of preventing this before. Okay, so you'll see there at the bottom now, protect plank ends by painting. Right, so 2 marks for stating your method, and then you get 2 marks for doing your drawing or your diagram of it as well. All right, you wouldn't even have to draw in the brush there. You could get away with just a timber and the paint on the end of it, and all of you will be able to do that, no problem. Okay, so just with the question then, just look how it's laid out. Like, it's very easy to follow on the page, so for me to read through it, for any examiner to read through it, it's laid out absolutely perfectly. You have part 1 at the top, part 2, and then you have the diagram or your sketch for part 2 there. Part 3 is laid out as a table, very handy to read through and see where you're getting your marks from. And then part 4 is laid out at the bottom of the page with your note and your sketch as well. Alright, so that's where you're getting your marks out of. Alright, so just bear that in mind now when you go on and try and answer a question yourself.